and increasingly barbaric. Just in the last few days, we had airstrikes back and forth between two nuclear powers. India, which is ruled by a far-right chauvinist Modi, and Pakistan. The war over Ukraine looks set to continue. Trump got his deal to rob the minerals from the Ukrainian people, and now for the moment the war looks set to continue. And the genocide in Gaza, if it's possible, and it seems to be possible, is worsening. You know, we've got almost a year and a half of a horrendous genocide, and it is worsening. The pace of deaths is quickening, and the rhetoric is still as clear as ever in saying what they're going to do. I mean, the finance minister for Israel, Smotrich, the other day said Israel or Gaza will be entirely destroyed. And the mechanism for that destruction that they have chosen is the weapon of famine. Huge amounts of trucks full of food trying to get into Gaza and just stopped. And within Gaza, 290,000 children who are now at risk of starvation. There's 70,000 children who have been hospitalized because they're severely malnourished. And there's 3,500 children facing imminent death due to starvation. And all of that is financed, is funded, is enabled, is given, is armed by Western imperialism. And we shouldn't just think that Western imperialism is the US. The US, we know, is the number one funder, the number one giver of arms. But after that comes Germany, comes Italy, comes Britain. And the EU has supported from the first day, has given the green light from the first day to this genocide. And just in the last week or so, sent firefighting aircraft to Israel, not to protect the people of Gaza who are having the bombs paid for by European taxpayers' money rained down on them, but no, to protect Israeli people faced with wildfires. And so we have a world that is increasingly divided and consolidated into rival imperialist camps, highly militarized. The US-led camp on the one side, and the Chinese-led camp on the other. And what is now a trade war can become a military war. And that doesn't just happen like that. It's something that builds up over time with a series of proxy wars, like we're seeing in Ukraine, where neither Putin, of course, with his brutal invasion of Ukraine, but neither the US and NATO, none of them, care about the interests of the Ukrainian people. The Western side are only interested in using the Ukrainian people to weaken Russia for their own interests. And now we have a new arms race taking place. I mean, it's sickening. In Europe, what the arms race is called Rearm Europe. You'd have the impression that Europe was perhaps disarmed over the past number of years with such a title of this project. But no. Over the past 10 years, military expenditure in Europe and globally has gone up every single year. We're at global military expenditure now of close to 3 trillion euros. Since 2011 in the European Union, military expenditure is up 30%. In the last year, it's up 10%. But that isn't enough. Now we've got Rearm Europe. It's going to speed up even further, and as being referred to, the fiscal rules are going to be suspended. Not so that we can build homes, not so that we can address the health crises, not so we can address the cost of living crisis, but so we can buy even more weapons and make the arms manufacturers, the dealers of death and destruction, even richer than they already are. And what getting rid of the triple lock is about, when they say this is happening in a certain world context, the world has changed, they're telling the truth, but they're also giving away their own agenda. They see this world being divided, and they know what side they're on. Ordinary people in Ireland know we're not in favour of either of these blocks. We're opposed to imperialism, to oppression, consistently. But they have a side. They're on the side of the US, of NATO. That's who they align with, people like Micheál Martin and Simon Harris. It's why they have permitted over 3 million troops to go through Shannon Airport to participate in invasions and occupations of Iraq and Afghanistan. It's why, and they really don't like it being said like this, but it's the truth, it's why they are complicit in the genocide in Gaza. Okay? They really hate being criticised about their position in Gaza. During the week, every time around the world, people say how good Ireland is about Palestine. Okay, they're not physically arming and funding the genocide themselves, like most of the Western countries. But they're complicit. They have to, because of public opinion, pretend to be doing something. But then, they want to get along with US-led NATO, they want to get along with these people at European meetings and so on, and that means being complicit in the genocide. It's why they said one thing during the elections about the Occupied Territories Bill, and then afterwards are dragging their feet and trying to water it down. It's why, through the central bank in Ireland, they are facilitating the sale of Israeli war bonds all across the European Union. And it's why they are turning a blind eye to thousands of tons of weapons, F-35 parts, detonators, fuses, guns, being transported illegally, without permission, over Irish airspace to be used in the genocide of the Palestinian people, and then go on TV and claim, sure, we don't know anything about this, when they've been given the evidence again and again. And so they want to get rid of neutrality altogether. And so they say, they've been quoted, no, this is nothing to do with neutrality. But we should just go back. When they thought they had their best opportunity to get rid of neutrality after Putin's invasion of Ukraine, they thought this is the moment. And they said it openly then. They said it openly. Neil Martin said it's a policy issue that can change at any time. All the other government members said the same sort of thing. But then public opinion remained steadfast. All the learned opinion pieces in the world saying we needed to grow up and get rid of neutrality, and the sham consultative forum, none of them did the job of shifting public opinion. And so exactly as Alice Mary said, they decided, okay, fine, you can have your word, and we just empty it of all content entirely. And that's a rhetorical battle that has been going on, but it is also creating facts on the ground, bit by bit, more and more openly aligning Ireland with US imperialism and with Western imperialism. Some of those things, again, it's not spoken about, but Ireland has attended more than 20 meetings at NATO headquarters over the past couple of years, as part of the Ukraine Contact Defence Group. Ireland has sent so-called non-lethal military aid to Ukraine. Ireland is talking, the government is talking, they're promising to triple military expenditure. And that is not about addressing the poor terms and conditions of our people in our defence forces. It's not about Ireland being prepared to defend itself against an attack. That's not what it's about. It does not make sense in those terms. The only way it makes sense is that it is about preparing to be further aligned with NATO and to join NATO later down the line, which would require a tenfold increase in military expenditure. These people, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, are the modern day equivalents of the Redmondites. Yeah. They want Irish people Redmond wanted Irish people to go and fight for the interests of British imperialism despite their colonisation of this country. That's their tradition. It's not just Fine Gael's tradition, it's now also Fianna Fáil's tradition. And our tradition, as reflected in our name, is a very, very different one. It's the tradition of James Connolly and the idea that we serve neither king nor Kaiser. And what does that mean for us today? I think it means neither Washington, nor Moscow, nor Beijing, nor Brussels. Consistent opposition to all the imperialist blocs. The last thing I'll say is that I think this is a very powerful gathering. But we shouldn't fool ourselves. We will not stop their attempt to dismantle neutrality by fine speeches in the Dáil and the Seanad, which I'm sure we will collectively try to give. We will not stop their attempt to dismantle neutrality by reasoned argument, by the logic that we are able to display here. They have their majority in the Dáil. It's why they did the deal with Lowry. They knew they were going to ram through a series of unpopular measures, and they locked in their majority. And they're going to try to use that majority to ram this through, regardless of what public opinion says and regardless of how eloquent we are in the opposition. The only thing that will stop them is people power mobilisation. It is the only thing that will stop them. So this is a great start. The roadshow across the country is the next very, very important step. But then this protest, which you need to get your leaflets on the way out, don't just take one leaflet, take hundreds of leaflets to distribute. We need to build this protest and put thousands, if possible tens of thousands of people on the streets on the 14th of June. And we have to mobilise all those people who have been politicised and horrified and mobilised by what's happening in Palestine. To mobilise those people who historically protested against the war in Iraq in defence and opposition to war. We also need to mobilise those people who want to see money spent on school places, who want to see money spent on hospitals, who want to see money spent on houses rather than spending money on weapons and on war. For us, the people before profit, the struggle against war, against militarism and for peace is an integral part of the struggle to put forward and advocate and build support for a socialist alternative to this capitalist system which is dragging us into barbarism. This barbarism is marked by ecological catastrophe, by the rise of the far right, and by militarism and genocide and war. And part of that is that the left needs to take ownership and lead the struggle of the defence of neutrality and against war. You cannot allow the likes of Trump and his acolytes in this country to present themselves as being in favour of peace when the war comes out of the system that they defend and the most horrific parts of it. So just to finish with a quote from Connolly, who's rightly been referred to a lot today. We have held and do hold that war is a relic of barbarism, only possible because we are governed by a ruling class with barbaric ideas. We have held and do hold that the working class of all countries cannot hope to escape the horrors of war until in all countries that barbaric ruling class is thrown from power. Thanks a lot.
Like, share, and subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.